guys, Jenny with On Fire Fit, and today we are talking about food. I love that subject, of course. And so I'm going to give you my basic outline of what I tell my patients and also what I tell my clients. But this is something that I always believe is a work in progress. Science and studies that are done on nutrition are constantly changing. If you hadn't noticed, there is always a new diet. There is always a kind of quick fix that comes out, and we seem to kind of recycle a lot of these ideas, but I really tend to go back to the basics and really try to stick with things that really end up being kind of common sense. I don't believe in removing entire food groups and things like that. I do think that we tend in America especially to go very heavy on carbs and especially processed foods, processed carbs, and those I am happy for you to completely eliminate and get out of your diet. But as far as getting rid of carbs altogether, or getting rid of fat or protein or whatever, I am not an advocate of that because I have seen too many people not be able to sustain it, and also you end up losing nutritional necessities that come with each of those food groups. So I'm going to start with something that is very basic, and you can do it any which way you want. Some people like building blocks, so you start with really mastering one level, and then if you feel really confident with that, you add another level. And as you continue to add levels, you start to see more and more progress. Other people love to kind of do it all at once because what ends up happening is you get a lot of momentum in your just your enthusiasm, I guess, for how you're feeling. So the more that you add components to this or levels, the more that you start to see results. And so that in and of itself ends up kind of moving you forward. But I do know that a lot of people are at a stage or a time in their life where it's very difficult to make an entire overhaul. So I see the benefit of starting with the basic level and really getting it to be a habit before you try to do others. So I think both approaches work. I've read studies that show that both approaches work. So you really kind of have to know yourself, where you are in your life, and what exactly will be the best choice for you at this point in time. Okay, so let's get started with the various steps that I recommend and also a little bit about each type of food category. So we have water as your overriding necessity, and then we have vegetables, which a lot of vegetables end up acting like carbs, so we got to keep that in mind. Protein, healthy fat, and then carbs. So I'm going to kind of go through those fairly quickly. At some point I'll get into a lot more depth, but at this point I just want to give you kind of an overhaul of your diet, okay? So I would say level one is to make sure you're drinking water throughout the day. And I don't believe that you should be pounding large amounts of water. It is a little harder on the kidneys to just be pounding water. Let's say you think I'm going to get my 64 ounces or whatever you've determined is the amount that you need, and you just pound it all in the morning so that you can drink soda the rest of the day. Not gonna work. Not a good idea to go that route. So better to have that throughout your day. Yes, you could flavor your water with various things. In fact, my husband just told me that he is a part of a group of people that do integrative health, and they were talking about various types of infused water. And one of the best tasting and favorite ones was to put orange slices and basil. So you get fresh basil and let that sit in your water, and he said surprisingly really good. And I wouldn't have thought of that. I tend to put mint in my water, but tomorrow I will be trying the orange basil water. So yes, you can do stuff like that. One other thing that people have found to be kind of a great way to transition away from soda is things like LaCroix, which is a drink that is a sparkling water with the essence of fruit. So essence of fruit, they get the flavor in there without adding extra sugar. So you got to really be careful when you go to the store and look at labels of sparkling water, because a lot of them will add things like aspartame or sucralose, which are fake sugars, which in my opinion are even worse than sugar. But I just say try to stay away from all of those sugars and fake sugars. So get the kind of sparkling water that only is actually carbonated water with infused fruit flavor. And that so far we have found to be a good way to kind of transition. Yes, it's not as strong flavored because it doesn't have sugar in it, but you do get used to it. My kids absolutely love it. I think my son's favorite flavor of that is peach pear, but they have a bunch of different really good flavors. So that would be the number one level. Number two level would be to concentrate on vegetables. So the more vegetables that you get into your diet, the more likely you are going to be eating healthy. And one reason is because it edges out the junk. So if you're adding in a lot of vegetables, you don't have as much room in your stomach. All the fiber is going to help keep your appetite in check. And it also provides a lot of nutrients that people are deficient in. And because people tend to get deficient on the traditional American diet, there's a lot of cravings, there's a lot of blood sugar issues that people go through. And of course, we know the reason that we're even talking about food right now is because of the obesity rate, diabetes, heart disease, cholesterol, all the things that I deal with at work with my patients, which we're trying to either avoid or trying to help improve upon. And vegetables is going to be really the best thing that you can do and focus on. When I talk about vegetables, I would say, unless you have certain health conditions that you need to talk to your doctor, I would encourage you to really try to get a lot of green vegetables. And then, of course, colorful vegetables like bell peppers and tomatoes and things like that. The things that tend to be more of a carb-related vegetable are going to be things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, yams, and missing something, peas and corn. Those are the ones that are just coming off the top of my head, but those tend to be more carb related, so try to get a lot more of the green in there. And there is a doctor that I can't think of his name right now, but he recommends that his patients try to eat a pound of vegetables a day. Sounds like a lot, but when you have a goal like that, then you really start trying to find ways to make it happen. So add some spinach to your omelet in the morning. Try to have a great big salad at lunch, and yes, you can put some protein in there. Try to have maybe carrots with hummus as a snack or something like that. And then maybe a big bowl of soup as the starter for your dinner, or make that your dinner. And then have vegetables in a salad on the side or whatever. So the more that you kind of keep thinking in terms of vegetables with every meal, the better off you'll be for your overall health as well as your weight. It's going to start happening more naturally. Protein is one of those things that is interesting, that studies tend to fluctuate a lot on that one. Sometimes there is a lot of push to get more and more and more and more protein. However, our kidneys tend to have a harder time when you just are overwhelming them with just tons and tons of protein. So you got to be cautious about that. We also have to think common sense. Did our ancestors eat that amount of protein every single day? No, they would eat when they were able to actually catch or kill whatever it was they were going to eat. They would eat a lot, but then they would go for long periods of time where they would be eating more things like nuts and seeds and vegetables and fruits and stuff. So they weren't constantly inundating their bodies with more and more and more protein. So think in terms of being balanced and try to think in terms of variety. So the other thing that kind of is going against common sense is to have all of your protein be chicken breasts. So to me, common sense says God made a chicken. That means he gave you the whole chicken. So if you're going to eat chicken, eat from all the parts of it. If you only eat chicken breasts all the time, because that's kind of the low fat fat of the past, you're getting only a certain type of nutrient, and it tends to be kind of inflammatory. So really trying to get variety going. And there's a lot of things that we can talk about where that's concerned, but try to have some meatless meals. Try to have some beans or lentils for some of your meals. Vegetables already have a lot of protein, so you don't have to be overly concerned that you're meeting your protein quota every day. I personally will notice that I will have more cravings for random stuff if I am not getting protein. So I'm not saying to stay away from it, but just thinking in terms of balance. So try not to get too overly worried that you have to have, so many grams. If you're a bodybuilder, I realize that you're probably going to be adding more protein because you're also doing a lot of tear down and repair and build. But, that's kind of a unique situation too. So keep in mind balance. I do say to my patients that, red meat once a week, once a month or whatever, that's fine. I don't personally eat red meat, but try to really not just stick with one type of meat or one type of protein. And we'll talk about that on another video at some point. Healthy fats are another one of those things that if you are, I know I'm gonna step on some toes here because a lot of people have really gotten successful with things like the ketogenic diet or Atkins. And there are certain things about each diet that are actually good. And I do think that there are elements of most diets that are really beneficial. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of them always go to an extreme. And the extreme ends up causing some damage in the long run. In the short run, everybody feels great and loses weight, and that's what they're after. But they're neglecting the long-term effects of eating let's talk about ketogenic. It's extremely high protein and fat. So they're neglecting all of the cancer reducing benefits of some of the other food categories that they've eliminated. There is a lot of extra stress on different organs, just trying to process all of that. So one of the things my daughter did was a report on the ketogenic diet, and she found that a lot of the diet plans that are on the internet really talk about doing really weird things like mayonnaise with your butter on your bacon, or just extreme amounts of weird combinations of fat and protein, just trying to really fill people up, which that food does fill you up, but it doesn't really make logical sense to me when you look at some of those diet plans. So let's think in terms of healthier fats. I used to be very, very low fat, non-fat, and it caused weird cravings. I would wake up in the middle of the night starving, and I would have to go find something in the fridge. And that's back when I wasn't sure if my stomach problems were related to fat. Turns out it wasn't the fat, it was the types of fat. So if I was eating greasy pizza or a hamburger, I would get terrible stomach aches and pains and whatever. But when I eat things like nuts and seeds and avocado, maybe olive oil in a salad dressing or something like that, I'm totally fine. And it really makes a big difference in your appetite. And that's because our bodies need it, our brains need that. So don't be afraid of healthy fats. People sometimes do go extreme and they just sit there and eat a whole bag of nuts or something, and just use common sense. Obviously, that's not a good idea either. So we want to keep that balanced and kind of portion throughout the day. But nuts and seeds, avocado, olive oil. Some people don't believe in things like olive oil or whatever in their diet, but I still think that that's a pretty good choice, partly because the Mediterranean diet uses that, and that's been a long-standing healthy diet. Also things like salmon that have natural fat built into them. Again, balance. So you're not eating salmon twice a day, every day, all day, trying to keep that balance always. Carbs. Okay, with carbs, What I really recommend is that people try to get their carbs more from the fruits and vegetables, if at all possible. So you're trying to stick with more fruit as one of your main carbs. So 3 servings a day or so. Berries tend to be lower in carbs, so that's a great choice. Blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, any berries. Other types of fruits are good too. Some tend to be higher in sugar, so you want to stay a little bit lower on those. Those would be things like mango, pineapple, watermelon. Grapes tend to be a little higher too. So those types of carbs, though, are going to be filled with more fiber and nutrition so that you are able to continue with good digestion, but also it gives you energy. So you have carbs a little bit in your diet. And I know some people do really well with low carb diets, and that's fine. I don't think there's a problem with getting rid of rice and bread and pasta and cereal. I think that we don't really need that stuff in our diet, but do think about healthy carbs. I do like to have a little bit of sweet potato or a little bit of a yam. I prefer those over potatoes if at all possible. And then maybe oatmeal is still, a good choice at breakfast time. So those would be the healthier carbs that I would recommend. So here's what I would consider for the various levels. So starting off, just think about, can I really pay attention to how much water I'm getting? Maybe put a water tracker app on your phone so that you kind of pay attention, because a lot of times you're hungry because you're thirsty. And once you get your water quota going, then you will feel a lot better and your appetite will be more real, okay? The next level I would say is trying to just focus on vegetables. Try to see how much you can incorporate into your day. If you don't eat very many vegetables right now, I would encourage you to start off with cooked vegetables because it's easier for your stomach to tolerate. And I don't think you want to have an exploding terrible stomach and then give it all up. So I would start with cooked vegetables and then maybe add a little bit of some raw vegetables, a little bit each day, so that you start to build up a tolerance to the extra fiber. And then from there, I would say try to start focusing on those different types of proteins, fats, and healthy carbs that we just talked about. And just try to think in terms of balance. I do want to give the caveat with protein when I was talking about beans and things like that. Another one of those that is difficult that's another one of those that can be difficult to digest. So it's recommended that you start with only a tablespoon or a teaspoon even with each meal, so that you start being able to tolerate beans a little bit better. But the good thing with things like beans and lentils is they have a resistant starch, which means that they tend to not spike your blood sugar. Because of the fiber, they make you full. They also are not totally absorbed in the body, so that they kind of are exiting your body, if you know what I mean, and kind of sweeping through your colon to try to help kind of detox you in a way. So the problem is sometimes people go gung-ho and they end up being very uncomfortable to the point of extreme pain sometimes, and then they just give it all up. So I would say just take it easy. If you're not used to it, take a little bit each day and just see how you do. Okay, so I think that's a better approach. I hope that this overview has helped you and that you will get enthusiastic to start to improve your health, because I truly believe that when you are putting good food in your body, it clears your mind, you start feeling better, you get more motivated so that you want to do more things that you love, or it kind of just spurs you on into the things that you want to do in your life. Maybe you want to make a difference in the world, and you need to feel good to do that. So I hope that that gives you a little inspiration to get started. I would love to hear from you. What are some of your tips or tricks that you have found for being able to get motivated and stay motivated? I am always looking for that kind of advice to give my patients, because it is one of those hard things for a lot of people. You either have a difficulty getting motivated or staying motivated. And what has worked for you? I would love to hear from you. And I look forward to you coming back to see me again soon. And in the meantime, stay on fire. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and give it a thumbs up if you liked the video.